I came across this story on accident. Before I go any further, if you hear some noise, like a little bit of noise in the background, that's just my fan. But I actually came across this story on accident. When I say that, that means I just kind of stumbled upon it. It came across a page of somebody that I didn't even know followed me. And I just happened to go to their page and they happened to retweet this story onto their page. Now, this story really isn't getting that much attention, and when you find out the details behind it, you'll understand why. And you'll learn that this story has a very, very, very striking resemblance to a story that I unfortunately didn't really touch on that much until a couple of weeks ago when they decided to reopen the case. So in this picture is an 18-year-old named Elijah Weatherspoon. And a few days ago on the 25th, I believe it was on the 25th, he went boating with some friends. Now, here's where it gets eerie. He went boating with friends, and I believe it was 7 of them, and I think he was like the 8th person. Out of all of the people that was there, out of all the people that were there with him, he was the only black guy on the boat. Everybody else on that boat was white. Now, I'm going to pause right there. This goes back to the story like Tamala Horsford. Remember the black mother who went to that sleepover and she was the only black person there? And then what ended up happening? Her body turns up the next day and she's dead. And they just kind of left it open right there with no arrest made. They didn't really do any type of investigation. They just basically claimed that she just died out of nowhere. Well, fast forward to this one. Well, his family noticed that after the boating, thing, because I'm assuming that this isn't the first time he's gone boating. He didn't come home. Everyone else did. They tried to chop it up as he just fell out of the boat and that he drowned. But according to what his family is saying, they said that Elijah was a good swimmer. Let's just chalk it up to this. Those people on that boat, they killed this boy. They killed him. Because when they interviewed all 7 people, all 7 of those individuals who was with him, they said every last story was conflicting. Like none of their stories matched up. Like they interviewed every last person and everyone gave a different story. No one gave the same story. They all gave a different account of what happened. The only thing they probably said was in common was that he drowned. But his family says that he was a good swimmer. They just found his body a couple days ago. Now, mind you, he went missing on the 25th. They say he's been missing since the 25th, and they just found his body probably like maybe 2 or 3 days later. But I'm going to go ahead and read the article. It says a pair of online petitions are demanding an investigation into the death of a black teenager whose family say he went boating last week with his white friends only to never return home. They both make reference to allegedly inconsistent statements from the friends of Elijah Nikki Weatherspoon, an 18-year-old whose body was found Saturday in a river in the town of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. The events leading up to his death are unclear and are being treated as if he was just another black man who couldn't swim and drowned, when in fact he can swim. Lauren Jackson, who started one of the petitions, and she said she knew Weatherspoon's aunt. The people who were with him have stories that do not match up. The other petition addressed several conflicting stories given to the police on what happened. Some say he decided to flip off the boat along with another, and a good Samaritan could only save one but not Nikki. Another story was the boat was docked and Nikki jumped off but couldn't come back up due to his inability to swim, even though he was an experienced swimmer. And another story was he panicked while another tried to help him and sank. Both petitions claim that the Mount Pleasant Police Department said it will not investigate the case. Did y'all hear that? So let me, before I go any further. So he goes out boating with some, at this point we say alleged friends. He's the only black person there. The rest of them are white. He's an experienced swimmer. They claim he did all this other stuff. None of the stories match up. And now these cops are saying they will not investigate the case. So they're basically just chopping it up that this guy jumped off the boat and he drowned. So are you going to try to say that he's suicidal now? Even though the family says he was an experienced swimmer. See, this is some bullshit. But let me get to the, before y'all even comment this, let me say it right here in this video. Because I know it's coming. This is why many black people do not like hanging around too many PC people. Especially if you are the only one there. If you are going to be, it's gotten to the point where if you are going to be if you want to be that black friend, quote unquote, and you know you're going somewhere and it's going to be a lot of white people there, carry you some backup. And when I say back, I mean like maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 5 additional black friends or something like that. Because that's crazy, but then that's going to lead us to believe, did he have any black friends? Especially since he was the only black person there. And boating is not something that black people commonly do. I'm not saying that black people don't do it, but it's not common that you find that a lot of black people do it. That's why when I be working at my job and I be seeing that one black person there, that one token, I be like, I hope they careful. I hope they are careful. And people be saying like, why am I saying that? I said, because I be hearing so many stories about that one black friend and they end up getting caught up in some shit and something happens. So it says it was an instance that eerily harkened back to how local law enforcement in rural Georgia did not investigate the death of a jogger. They're talking about Ahmaud Arbery. It was only after national media brought attention to the case and multiple prosecutors refusing themselves that Ahmaud Arbery's killers were ultimately charged with murder, months after the shooting in broad daylight, that critics called it a modern-day lynching. In fact, Weatherspoon's death comes at a time when there have been multiple suspected lynchings of black and brown people nationwide amid protests against racism as well as police violence. Weatherspoon's family suspects racism is factoring into the Mount Pleasant Police Department's decision against investigating the teenager's death. I would severely and highly say so, considering he was the only black male on that boat and everyone else was white. I bet you if it was reversed and it was only one white person on that boat and everyone else was black, they would do a full-blown investigation, no questions asked. This is clearly more than an accident. One of the petitions says, before adding, that Weatherspoon's family believes that Nikki was black and everyone else was white. They're not trying to investigate. An officer questioned as to why was Nikki on this side of town, Mount Pleasant. Why wasn't he on his side of town? Regardless of what side of town he was on, a crime was committed and we seek equal justice. Now listen to that. The officer questioned why this black male was on that side of town. I think it's clear, cut, and dry that they're not going to investigate it simply because he was a black male. The fact that the terrorist, even said that or even asked that question lets you know that they have no intentions of discussing this case or investigating it. Well, looks like it's gonna have to be some noise made down in South Carolina, unfortunately. And you know, that's the unfortunate part, that even when it comes to cases like these, black people have to force, not so much beg, but force people to do what they're supposed to do. And then they wonder why the police are being defunded or why people are asking for the police to be defunded. This is why. And then they get upset and cry and whine and bitch and complain that nobody likes them. This is why. Because they are acting very careless when it comes to this case right here. They don't want to investigate it. The cop asked, why was he on the side of town? Why wasn't he on his side of town? He literally is speaking as if we are in 1950s, 1960s Jim Crow. That's why I keep telling people Jim Crow really didn't leave. The remnants of it are still here today in 2020. And it's in South Carolina, so that really doesn't surprise me. They real ass backwards down there. Trust me, I know, because I used to go to school down there. The Mount Pleasant Police Department social media channels had not addressed Weatherspoon's death as of Monday morning. A message sent to the department for comment was not immediately returned. See, that shows you how careless it was right there. They didn't even talk about it on their social media platforms. And it happened in that town. And they were the the terrorists that were interviewing the 7 that were with him. So they just taking the words of these individuals as if it's fact. Even though all their stories are conflicting stories, and they're taking every last story with it as if it is the gospel truth. Like I said, that's just how it happened with Tamla Horsford. But look, her incident happened last year, and they just now reopened her case after they quote unquote found new evidence to reopen it a couple weeks ago. But they'll go to the edge of the earth to find some white girl all missing in Aruba, and y'all know who I'm talking about. The report about Weatherspoon came days after a noose was found in the garage stall of NASCAR's highest-ranking black driver, Bubba Wallace. The racist imagery associated with lynchings, which is also defined as a mob of people committing a killing, followed by a series of suspicious hangings of black and brown people in recent weeks. A car filled with white men who yelled the N-word at a black driver and doused her with lighter fluid before setting her face and neck on fire in Milwaukee happened over the weekend too, showing that these seemingly isolated incidents are linked through their anti-black agendas. While Weatherspoon was not killed from being hanged or being intentionally burned, how he died matters in the larger context of the racial uprising and reckonings happening around the world, and especially in the U.S. Well, I hope that the family and the people of that town who was close to him stay on top of this and see if they can get some noise really, really on and popping down. And hopefully the video that I do about this can spread far and wide, so it can get more attention, because mainstream media is not going to talk about it. The damn police department down there is refusing to investigate it. Those people that was on that boat with him are clearly lying. Somebody killed that boy. Somebody on that boat did it. And as far as I am concerned, they are all guilty in my eyes. But I do offer my condolences to this boy's family and his very unfortunate way to go. I mean, just think, like, it's crazy. Like, the last time they saw their loved one, he was getting ready to go do what he loved. And now he'll never come home.